down, and those guys were just dangling on there as we're seeing the construction workers now move towards the top. One of the jewels of our community, the Milwaukee County Courthouse, one of the most ornate, recognizable buildings in the entire city of Milwaukee. These guys working on the side of it. And there you can see members of the HURT team on top, making sure these guys are okay, working with them. And those guys are experts. We are lucky to have them in our community. They are trained. I am not a fan of height staff. I would not be good at this job, either of these guys' jobs, whether on the HURT team or with Berglund there, but these guys are pros at it.
Yeah, absolutely pros when it comes to this sort of thing. But regardless, when the piece of equipment you're on fails more or less and falls, I mean, that's a scary situation for anybody. But it's amazing, now that we're getting this closer vantage point from our photographer who's on the ground here, it's amazing to see the work that goes in to making sure that these guys are safe before any sort of crew gets up there. You see these metal bars that are literally built off the side of the Milwaukee County Courthouse, I assume specifically for this piece of scaffolding, right? And so they put this sort of stuff in place, they get everything situated, then they load up the scaffolding, they get that out before the guys start utilizing the scaffolding to work on the facade of the building. So if we could have our photographer who's on the ground right now, if they can hear us, zoom out, just to give our viewers at home a bit of a vantage point as to how high this is. And there's the issue, right? This is why we're breaking into Judge Judy right now, because of that piece of scaffolding that has fallen and is now sitting at a 45-degree angle. I mean, you can tell from this vantage point just how high these guys really are. I mean, this really helps put into perspective. You see the fire trucks that are there on the scene. You see the passersby who are looking up saying, oh my goodness, that doesn't look right. Something looks to be wrong. The traffic, I'm sure, is thinking the exact same thing as they're sitting in their cars. And you have to assume then that our photographer kind of has to have this vantage point, which is a great one, because you can't get any closer. You see Milwaukee police there on the scene on the right-hand side. The Jeep kind of just covered it there. I'm sure they have some sort of perimeter created at this point to keep people safe just in case that piece of scaffolding does tumble all the way to the ground.
Well, the good news here is just below that there's a park, so there's no roads that go beneath that. This is one of the main entrances to the courthouse. They actually block it off now. You have to enter on the side street on the where the interstate is. It's down below. But we do a lot of live shots right below this. There's a fountain down there. MacArthur Square is just to the east of here. So this would be the south-facing side of the courthouse that you're looking at live here. And this is a place where a lot of people come in and out that are attorneys, doing business inside the courthouse, people who've got some sort of appointment in the courthouse. It can be a very busy place, but with these guys working above, I don't know if they've closed that off. I would assume that that area would have been closed off, so nobody just with them normally working there. But the good news is I don't know if this will affect traffic too much because there's a park down below. You know what's interesting? I never knew this. Looking up here, I had no idea there was an access point just below the top of the roof. Like where the HURT team is right now. They're not on the top of the roof. They're just below that. You can see that ornate kind of carvings that's just below the roof. There must be a top floor there that gives them access. As you can see, that is workers. Those are some of the facade workers that are talking with members of the Milwaukee Fire Department and the HURT team right now, kind of talking about what to do next. But there you can see the equipment just to the right. That is what is allowing that piece of equipment to go up and down that the pulley system's off on. You can see that is a piece of steel and how strong it is that it can hold up this stuff. But the piece of equipment that failed was just to the right of this. And the question will be, what happened that caused, obviously, part of their scaffolding to just drop down and leave these guys in such a dangerous spot?
Without a doubt. And we just got word from one of our weather experts, Stephanie Barrichello, that when it comes to the winds, right? I mean, on the ground level, it's, we see the trees blowing. We see the flags kind of blowing in the wind. It's about 15 miles per hour in terms of kind of the sustained winds out there. So not too bad. But when you go high, you know that it gets a little breezier up there. And so these guys are, about 170 feet up there in the air. And so thankfully, it's a nice day. Thankfully, it's not raining. Thankfully, we don't have 35-mile-an-hour winds off the lake right now. Otherwise, it'd be a different situation, I assume. But, they are dealing with a little bit of a breeze. But it certainly could be worse. I mean, we got sunshine and a relatively nice day on this Thursday, Ben.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I want to talk a little bit about this company, Berglund, big national company. They opened a Wisconsin field office in 2020, and this is all these guys do pretty much, going to historical buildings. And a building like the Milwaukee County Courthouse, with everything you see on the outside, there is a lot of upkeep to these buildings, and not uncommon for them to need to be touched up. We've got two angles on this now. You're seeing it both from our tower camera in the upper right and from our photojournalist on the ground in the left there. So these guys are used to hanging out. I mean, 15-mile-an-hour winds, hanging out 170 feet above the air, to me and you, sounds maybe like the most terrifying thing ever. To these guys, it's just a day in the office, just a normal Thursday for them, until today turned into a not-so-normal Thursday, when just before 3 o'clock today, there was some sort of equipment malfunction, and part of the scaffolding lowered down. And now we're seeing some of the workers who were up there finally getting off the building. They actually stayed there on the ledge and kind of they were working on the equipment, doing the best they could to keep it from falling down. As you can see in that right shot, there's the equipment that has failed. And now the workers have moved off to the left, and they've raised the scaffolding up so these guys presumably can get off the building when they're ready. As you can see them just jump up and onto that ledge where there are members of the Milwaukee, the HURT team, the high urban rescue team that is currently on scene. So just before 3 o'clock, they got the call that scaffolding had partially collapsed. Again, we talked about the different kinds of systems that scaffolding workers use. You can build it up, and I'm seeing that right now at my local high school. They're doing some work really high up, and they've built scaffolding up throughout the whole building. Or you can do something like this. Window washers use this system a lot in Milwaukee, and a lot of times there's equipment on the top of buildings that stays there that allows someone like a window washer, or if they need to do work like this, it allows you to clip on your scaffolding, put the ropes down, and then you have a system where these things can go up and down. So we're watching this very closely here, 3:40 in the afternoon, as a partial scaffolding collapse has some workers in a very precarious position for a time. They were up there for about 20 minutes before the fire department could, and really their coworkers could come in and help them out. So we continue to watch this. Obviously, you are seeing this, again, this is the south side of the building on what looks like a picture-perfect day above, blue skies. They were doing the facade work up there, trying to restore this beautiful building that you really can see anywhere that you are downtown. You look up at it, one of the most beautiful buildings here, but there's a lot of work to keep it that way. So they were up there doing the normal work when something happened. We're still waiting to hear from the fire department exactly what occurred. Obviously, the fire department a little too busy to talk to us right now, as they're still working to make sure everybody's safe. It appears they have done that, and now they're working on plan B. How do you get that equipment back in its right spot, and possibly how do you take it off of the building? Because if they could have done that earlier, they would do so. But it looked like right now they're maybe going to plan B, as all the workers, I believe, if we could zoom in a little closer, have moved off of the structure, and they're now on top of the courthouse, probably coming up with a game plan here. So I want to show you a video from earlier. This is what it looked like as we took it live, as some of these workers were on that scaffolding. There you can see, look, that piece was all by itself, 45-degree angle, and look at the workers that are on it trying to climb to the top as something went wrong here. But it looks like all their safety precautions worked, because these guys are wearing harnesses. They were strapped in, and you can see he's holding on to a rope that is attached to the top of the Milwaukee County Courthouse, as some of the coworkers, and this guy just jumped out onto the ledge there, getting off the scaffolding that lowered. We don't know how quick that lowered, if it was a big drop and the thing actually just fell down, or if it slowly lowered. We're still waiting to hear a word, but you can see these guys quickly were working to get themselves safe, make sure the equipment was secure, but that guy literally just holding on to a rope from on the side of the scaffolding. Look at where his feet are, as he was just hanging very high above the Milwaukee County Courthouse. The hurt team was called in. You can't even see them in this shot as they were above the scene securing, but nobody looked like they were in panic mode at any moment that we were watching this. Again, these guys work Monday through Friday, working up on tall buildings in some very scary spots. Not scary for them, though, and you could see that all changed today when something happened with their equipment.
Absolutely. Can we open my mic real quick? All right, here we are. Just kind of make a move to the studio here because we're getting close to the Fox 6 News at 4, but we're staying with this, guys. So those of you watching from home, let's just kind of bring you back here. So the call for what happened here, the scaffolding incident, came in about 10 minutes before 3. That's when our newsroom was first alerted to something going on. So we wanted to see what was happening. We sent a crew to the scene. We got on to some of our live tower cameras that we have around the city, and this is what we found. So the Milwaukee County Courthouse, obviously a very, very recognizable landmark in our city. You know where this is. You've driven by it probably a million times on 43. These guys, the Berglund Company, they were out there. They were contracted to do work on the outside of this building. They are typically working on historic buildings. The courthouse, of course, that exact thing, built back in 1931 on the National Register of Historic Places. They were doing some exterior facade and stonework, and they build these contraptions, these pieces of scaffolding, so that their workers can work safely on the side of the building. And just before 3 o'clock this afternoon, that's when the calls came in that this piece of scaffolding had dropped. One of the edges had kind of dropped off. How it happened, again, we're not exactly sure. Was it a quick drop? Was it a relatively slow drop? They're on these pulley systems that we showed you just a short time ago when we were pretty zoomed in there. A lot of ropes are attached to these pieces of scaffolding. The good news here is that it looked like whatever safety system they had in place in case something failed worked. That's the good news here. We don't know about injuries. We haven't gotten any word when it comes to that. This is still a very active scene as of right now. They're still working to try to get this piece of scaffolding repositioned and elevated or lower to the ground so that it's not a hazard to everyone else who's kind of around this area, not a hazard to the building either. But all the workers, they're now off that piece of scaffolding, which is a good thing, because when we originally got notified about this, took this shot, there were several workers who were kind of hanging on for dear life on the side of this piece of scaffolding. And they were just hanging on to the ropes that they had. They were waiting for instruction from those working above them. The hurt team was called out, the heavy urban rescue team with the Milwaukee Fire Department. This is what they do. These guys are trained to deal with very precarious situations that you and I probably wouldn't even dream of happening. But things happen, right? And so they have to be prepared for situations like this. So they were called in, and that's what they've been doing over the last 45 minutes or so, is number one, getting people to safety, which they have done. From our vantage point, we can see that. And number two, getting this piece of scaffolding to safety. So they've put another piece of scaffolding in between the one on the left and then the one that's failing on the right. And they kind of put the people onto there. And it looks like now they're working to just really secure the piece of scaffolding that's at that 45-degree angle.
And I don't see anybody up there now. It looks like they're all maybe hanging out on top, coming up with a game plan. Guys, can we play the video from earlier when this was real? And maybe, Steph, you and I can just walk again everybody through this, because that video is just incredible. Again, this is Berglund, a facade expert company. They've got a Wisconsin division. And here, this was the moments earlier today. The equipment fails. And look at these guys on the equipment as they're starting to climb up to try to get to safety up on the courthouse. One guy they're both holding on to those ropes, the ropes that are hanging on the top of the building, as those guys probably had no confidence in anything else that was on this structure. And look, you can see on the left side, it's being held up by a rope, but there is really not a whole lot holding it up on the right side, except for what the guy's holding on to. Mm-hmm. Makes you wonder if him holding it there is actually keeping that equipment up at the time. And then you can see his coworker working with the ropes to try and secure both himself, the piece of equipment, keep everybody safe. These guys doing an incredible job to keep their cool throughout all of this. And again, this is the south side, so Wells Street runs right up on that side of the courthouse, and then 10th Street would be right around the corner. A lot of times that's the way you got to go inside now. But that entrance down below is used a lot by people to exit the courthouse. We do a lot of live shots from down there. The good news, there's no road below. There's a little park, and you can see just how tall that building is, just how high those guys are when they were up there, and this piece of equipment failed. And you can see it's kind of people are leaving the courthouse as we're seeing that live shot on the left, but just incredible stuff.
It is, and you have to imagine, what was going through these workers' minds as they were kind of sitting there saying, all right, this isn't what's supposed to happen. We should probably make a call, get some help out here, and that's exactly what's happening now. So again, both of those guys were, they kind of marched their way up that piece of scaffolding at that steep incline. They were roped in. And when we got close with our cameras and really zoomed in on these workers, you could see, they're all harnessed up. And I have to assume that that's just part of their standard safety precautions that they take, because they are working high up. I mean, this is their job, right? This is what this company does. They're used to doing things like this. There's safety precautions that they have to take. And so these guys were likely hooked in to the piece of scaffolding or hooked onto ropes and the pulley systems to kind of make sure that they're good regardless of what happens. And good thing today, because with this equipment failure, things could have been a lot worse in the situation. We haven't gotten any sort of notification that, we're not seeing Flight for Life come to the scene. We're not seeing ambulances rush away from the scene. So we have to assume, based on what we're seeing, right, using our logic, that people are safe. We're now just trying to save the piece of equipment so that doesn't do any further damage.
Well, I don't feel good about the way it's hanging there. I'm going to bring Ted Perry in the newsroom. Ted, this is an iconic building for Milwaukee County. I mean, this is a thing that's really one of the symbols of our city because of just how ornate the building is. Obviously, it needs a lot of work here, but man, a scary situation for these workers today.
And keep in mind, and both of you have touched on this, the fact that this could have gone horribly wrong were it not for the safety procedures here. You saw the harnesses in which both are wearing. Now, I've worked on scaffolds before. In another life, I was a house painter. And not that high up and not with that system, but you got to keep in mind, and we saw that a couple minutes ago when there were two guys on, you got to remember, for every yin, there's a yang. So you move down part of the scaffolding, the other guy has to know you're moving, right? So those two appeared to be working in coordination very well when one started to go up and the other had a surefire grip on his rope. These guys are working, again, 17 stories up and 170 feet in the air. They're also artists. I mean, the work these guys do, the masonry work they do, there's a reason they're specifically doing construction work on the Milwaukee County Courthouse. They've done Winnebago County Courthouse, the Honey Creek Bridge, the City County Building in Madison. They've done some work on the Milwaukee Public Library. So Berglund has opened its 7th office in Wisconsin, or I should say its 7th office, this one in Wisconsin in 2020, with that specific area of expertise working on these old neoclassical buildings in many cases. So now it's a question, guys, whose job is it to right the scaffold now that all is safe? Is it the Hurt team? Is it Berglund? Is it a combination of both? And I think that's what you're seeing up there is a lot of discussion of, I think the Hurt team would still probably be in charge because there is a public safety factor here.
And I think we're getting looks like we're getting ready for an interview here. I don't know, can we take this sound here?
Oh, it looks like it's Chief Aaron Lipsky from the Milwaukee Fire Department. He looks like he's kind of making sure that all the press is situated and they have everything ready to go, because I'm assuming he's going to want to do this one time and one time only because of the precarious situation. As our reporter gets closer to the chief here to give us an update on exactly what's happening, let's listen in. It looks
had a brief language barrier issue, we were able to utilize one of our Spanish firefighters to fast track them up to the roof so that they can close that gap. We are ecstatic that there were no injuries, and what I can tell you is that I will be 1,000% transparent. We were ready to go over the edge and go down and conduct a rope rescue on these individuals. These folks that are working on this site are highly skilled. This is their work environment. So, while this is undoubtedly extremely scary and hazardous, if they weren't wearing the proper equipment, which they were able to, with the help of their co-workers, utilize an adjacent scaffolding. We were up there to make sure that they were in fact secured with rescue harnesses. We were able to, I don't know if you were able to see the shooting across that ledge, got to the fully functioning scaffolding. They were raised up for the roof of Arnold. Again, I want to emphasize there were no injuries, and while it is visually spectacular, it has been brought to a safe conclusion. It's the best ending to the story. I would like to turn it over to Inspector Dobson of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Chief. I'd just like to say we were on scene about a minute after the incident occurred and just provided security as the incident unrolled. We were concerned that potentially some equipment was going to come down. That didn't happen, thankfully. But we're going to remain on scene throughout the night to ensure that nothing comes down. And if it does, there's no one around and that everyone's safe. It's a courthouse facade restoration project. It's obviously a very old building, built in 1929. They want to ensure that the facade is safe and that everything is secure and it looks appropriate. So they've been working on that, and this is phase 3 of the project, and it's going to continue for several months.
Chief, you said that there were no physical injuries. As far as the mental state of the two workers, how would you describe it?
I have not spoken with them. I haven't gotten word that there's been any major impact there. Again, this is spectacular though this is their environment. Just their exposure repeatedly to working in that environment, it isn't quite as scary for them as it would be for the average person. 11 stories up looking down.
Have you ever responded?
Yes. Not here, but yes. Many scaffold rescues. Sure. Well, we're obviously extremely interested in respecting gravity and making sure that all of our gravity resistant systems are fully functioning and are being used as designed. Everything we do, we try to do with redundancy. So when you see us go over, we're not going to just have one rope, we're going to have 2, sometimes 3. We'll do the same thing for folks that we're going to put in a rescue harness and put stuff in the down.
You say your team was fully prepared to go over the ledge and help those people that are on that scaffold. What went into the decision to have this construction crew bring that third scaffold up to either rescue them?
Sure. So when we get up, we interact with a lot of construction crews and a lot of building maintenance folks just as part of our regular day-to-day. Our folks, and I'm making some assumptions here because I haven't actually briefed them yet, but our folks undoubtedly got up there and immediately found out who was in charge topside. They did a quick assessment. They probably evaluated, okay, these folks are in control of the situation. They are functioning coherently. They're calm. And they already have a lot of equipment in place that, quite frankly, they can utilize just the same. They're familiar with it. And as long as everybody's tied off with safety harnesses and we can observe that they're following basic rope rescue technique, that's good. The best rescue, I guess, is the fastest system. And we could have certainly bullied our way in and said, no, it's got to be our way, but that's not using all the tools available to us, so we went that way.
Are there any plans for removing or fixing that third scaffold that's waiting right now?
Great question. So we have been informed that the contractor is sending additional folks out. Like I said, it is secured, so there should be no fall hazard from that right now. They are sending additional folks over, and they intend to have this cleared up tonight.
Chief, is that one parallel like the other two and it dropped to where it is now, 30 or something down?
That's our understanding, yeah. And I don't know the speed at which it dropped, but both individuals remained in the scaffold. A lot of times if those drop too quickly, you'll find them hanging from their safety harnesses. And they were both in the basket when we got here, so we don't think it happened too fast.
They have harnesses on?
They did.
And to be clear, you have...
So they were dangling, well, they weren't dangling, they were still in the basket. We got the call at 2:48. I think we were called right away, so I would say probably they were in that basket for about a half an hour. That's a ballpark.
Chief, to be clear, you said that those were your harnesses too that further secured the scaffolding that they brought up the third one?
No.
No.
Well, we had all our stuff up there. We were ready to go. They already had their self-rescue equipment deployed. I said, all right, it's good. They had their stuff set up right for the territory.
And you said that these incidents are fairly common. How often are you involved in these responses?
Well, a couple times a year. And around taller buildings, obviously. A couple times a year we're popping out for these things.
Chief, from your experience, what can cause a fire?
I tell you, I've seen a variety of things. There's tiny little motors that actually raise and lower these things. Those can fail and kind of just go in reverse unexpectedly. There could have been some sort of rope failure. It doesn't look like that's what happened here. A variety of things.
Looking at this, does it look like it's causing
Well, it's hanging at a 45-degree angle, so something went wrong. And I don't know what yet.
Were they medically evaluated when they were not hurt?
That's correct. They both waved it off. We just gave them a quick once over. They wanted nothing to do with medical. That's a good sign.
All those other workers that came over to help move them across that little ledge on top, you know if they knew those guys were reassuring for them to
I don't know their relationship. I know they're all from the same company, so I imagine they were familiar. Absolutely.
How long have they been working on this before the collapse?
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
You know how long the project has been going on?
This is a phase 3 of a project, and this phase 3 just started a couple of weeks ago. The scaffolding was just recently erected.
How long is the project going on?
I'm not sure. You'll have to contact the county to see the process.
They've been here for quite a while. So it seems like they've been continuing to ongoing for
This phase 3 just recently started. I mean, I want to say a few weeks ago that they got the scaffolding erected and started this phase 3 project.
I don't think the name of it just confirmed. This is their home construction, right?
I believe that's the subcontractor that we're using. Yes. Someone here had a question. I might have missed something.
No, I guess just to reiterate on that.
Yeah, there was no fall, there was no injury, even though the thing was handled like that. They had capable co-workers in place. I'll tell you what, huge kudos to those folks for stepping in and starting. By the time we got here, they had started to put some of their extra equipment, some topside in position to be able to help. That's enormous. It makes us nervous. We're not always sure capabilities of people when we're arriving at the ledge there. But our folks up there were able to do very, very quick communication and determine they're on the level, so to speak, and they're going to do a good job.
Did you consult on that decision to have the subcontractor raise that third scaffold up to bring it up next to the building?
Yeah, our folks were in concert with their folks to make that happen. Absolutely. Yep. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.